This is your group of energy stories for the first week of June 2021. Sorry I missed you last week. I was traveling back from Memorial Day, but let's jump right into this. After 3 long years, the Mid-Atlantic power market, PJM, which represents around 21% of U.S. GDP, finally held its auction for capacity. That's the ability to supply power when called upon to meet peak demand. This was for the 2022-2023 delivery year, and surprisingly, costs were really low at an average of around $50 per megawatt day for 144,477 megawatts of capacity resources. That's well under the $140 price reached in 2018. I say surprisingly because of the controversial minimum offer pricing rule known as MOPR, which is in place now, which requires state-subsidized resources to bid in at specific floor prices. There was some concern this would reduce the amount of supply available at lower prices, thereby pushing auction results higher. But that didn't happen. It was controversy around this MOPR rule that led to the 3-year auction delay, and it appears, based on current PJM and FERC stances, that next year we may not be moping about this rule at all. Not surprisingly, coal plants got hurt, but 2 nukes also failed to clear price hurdles and will not receive capacity payments. Owner Exelon says they'll be shut if Illinois doesn't ante up money to keep them open. Let's move from grids to transportation for a bit. In Norway, almost 8,500 new electric cars were registered in May, totaling 60.4% of all sales, and 83% if you add in plug-in hybrids to the tally. Ford's making a pretty good move here, it appears. The most successful model across all the drive types was the Ford Mustang Mach-E, with 1,384 new registrations, the only competitor in the mix with 4-digit registration figures. China's BYD is now joining the electric school bus fray in North America with a number of models in lengths from 35, 38, and 40 feet, driven by 2-wheel motors and a lithium iron phosphate battery offering around 155 miles of range. And it apparently has bidirectional charging capabilities. Overall, they suggest fuel costs may be cut by up to 60% and maintenance costs by a similar amount compared to their diesel brethren. As more EVs enter society, they'll need some place to slurp up that power. So 7-Eleven is getting into EV fast charging game in a pretty big way, with plans to install 500 DC fast charging stations at 250 North American locations by the end of next year. That's a big jump over their 22 charging stations they operate today, and while the company hasn't disclosed a vendor for the new stations, speculation is leaning towards ChargePoint since there's branding on the connector of unit in a company-provided photo. How fast will the new units be? 7-Eleven's not saying, but if it is ChargePoint, they're likely to range between 60 and 125 kilowatts. Well, more electric vehicles is going to mean more batteries and more raw materials from which to make those batteries. So the lithium-ion battery recycling industry is gearing up pretty quickly with 2 announcements last week. First, South Korean steel company POSCO indicates they want to set up a recycling business together with Chinese company Hoyo Cobalt, and they already have a 65-35 JV called POSCO High Clean Metal. This group will invest about 88 million euros to build a black mass processing plant in Gwangyang. That's the product of battery recycling and contains materials such as nickel, lithium, cobalt, and manganese. That JV will extract these materials from the black mass and process those into battery quality inputs, with an initial capacity of about 10,000 tons beginning this year. Meanwhile, Canadian company Stelco and Primobius, a JV between Australian company Neometals and Germany's SMS Group, has signed up to build another facility to recover and recycle metals from lithium-ion batteries in North America. This plan is to have a nominal annual capacity of 20,000 tons. And yes, my book, The Energy Switch, finally arrived at my home this week. It comes out officially on June 15th, and it explains how and why the grid is changing, the forces behind that transformation, and the complexity of the interacting technologies that will make up today's and tomorrow's future grid. A colleague of mine who's just read the book told me, this has to be the textbook for anybody pursuing sustainability. He's asking everyone on his team to read it. I hope you will too. Well, thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.